Hey, welcome back to the Artie Lange Show, and with me right now is legendary comic actor.
Legendary.
Actually, one of those guys whose credits are actually too long to list. I'll just say Robert Wuhl. From my hometown, my favorite credit, from my hometown of Union, New Jersey, Robert Wuhl. What's up, buddy?
Hey, we're doing a home and home tonight.
I know, yeah.
Artie was just on my show, I did this thing on Sirius, and I was thinking, this is just like when Phil Collins did Live Aid. Anyway, and he started in Philadelphia, and then he flew across to London.
So it was London, Philadelphia.
It was London, Philadelphia?
Yeah, just as poignant.
So I came all the way from 6th and 49th.
Now, wait, so tell us more about this. So you're doing a show on Sirius. What is the show on Sirius?
Fantasy baseball. I do it once a week.
Is it amazing how big fantasy football and baseball has become to where now it garnishes its own channel on Sirius?
I'll tell you how big it was. I once asked Hub Arkish, who
Right.
runs Pro Football Weekly, and I contended, I said that over the last 10, 15 years, the explosion, and I mean, the NFL was always big.
Right.
And baseball was always big. But the explosion, especially the NFL, over the last 15 years, when you saw Super Bowl ratings go through the roof and the explosion of it, I would point to two things. One was fantasy.
Right.
And the other was high-def televisions.
No, absolutely, man.
Because
I remember,
the first time.
The first time I saw
I'm
a football
getting one
game,
of those.
or a football or a baseball game. The first time I saw grass on high def, at a football or a baseball game, I was like, oh my God. And you knew that was the end of artificial turf in baseball.
I'll even go you one step better. The first time I smoked grass watching high def.
Yeah, no,
it was like, oh, I'm getting one of these.
No, I mean, it is really like brutally great. Like,
well, then I asked, then Hub Arkish said to me, I'll tell you how right you are. Every 10 years, they do a survey among their subscribers.
Right.
Why do you purchase our publication? And he said, and you should be 58%, 50, 60% would say for sporting purposes, meaning gambling.
Yeah, of course.
And fantasy was usually about 25. He said in our in 2009 or 2010, he said it was like 51% was fantasy,
right.
And gambling had gone down like 49%.
Yeah.
He said that's how big, because everybody now is their own general manager. They all know they can run the team.
Well, it's legal gambling. I mean,
it is legal gambling.
I mean,
exactly.
basically, the company I work for, DirecTV, an amazing company funded mostly by this Sunday ticket, the NFL ticket.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's the best service on the planet. You can get every game in the NFL, and obviously, illegal gambling is always going to be up there with the people who need that, but more so now, and it's great because it's a legal thing, is fantasy football.
Yeah,
who needs every game? I mean, bookies and people in fantasy football. And fantasy football is taking over the country. It's
and people who never knew anything.
Right.
I got to tell you, that was part of the reasons why I think my sports talk radio didn't work that well, is because I didn't play fantasy football because I love baseball, and baseball is my love. But part of the reasons was I didn't want to talk about the backup tight end and the nickel package of the Denver. I don't really care.
It actually gets people too into it. You're right.
It's like I'm not the guy for this.
You get too into it and you become nerdy about it to where it's boring.
Yeah, but when you were doing if you're doing a sports talk show, especially when you're on the station that was, and I was working for Westwood One at the time, that was doing the NFL, that audience wants that information, and I wasn't the guy to do that.
No, they're hardcore about it, man. And you know what it also does is a lot of these kids in their early and mid 20s are in fantasy football leagues. During the football season, they go home early on a Saturday night. Like, they'll stop talking to a girl at a bar to go home because they got to get up early and pick their team.
Well, yeah, that's
a little pathetic.
Well, they see that picking their team they can control. Doing with the girl, that's anybody's game.
At least give it a shot.
One would think.
But fantasy baseball is big, but not nearly as big.
No, nothing. Well, it's the same thing with like baseball versus football.
Right.
I mean, as far as it's football is America's. It's speed and violence. It's tough to beat that.
What do you think about football? We briefly talked about this last time about the way it's going. There's some former NFL guys say 15, 20 years just not going to be the same game. It might be two-hand touch.
I'm not buying anything. I've heard this for 20, 30 years. I remember 30 years ago somebody saying, 15, 20 years now.
On this level, though, I mean, as much as with the concussions, the lawsuits.
It's doing, they're going to find a way to do that more, but look at the numbers.
Yeah,
look at the numbers, the money. I mean, it hasn't gone down.
No.
I remember them saying this 15, 20 years. It's probably too violent. I mean, can you imagine back in the day when they had those guys wearing no face masks and no, the helmet and stuff like that?
Ironically enough, they're talking about going back to that because it would make people not go for the face.
Not if there's money involved in it, it wouldn't be. No,
and
they're
plus
not
if you steroid it up, too. Who knows what you're thinking.
Yeah, that's not happening.
I went to the last 2 Super Bowls. DirecTV, was kind enough to get me tickets to the last 2 games. And last year in particular, I was sitting 3rd row. And it was the first time I had seats that good for an NFL game in about 15 years. And the guys have gotten way bigger in even the last 15 years. And the hits have gotten hard. You get guys 6'8", 260 pounds doing 4.340s now, man. They're guided missiles. And I saw a couple of hits in that game sitting in the 3rd row where I said, that guy's dead. That guy's dead. And they get up and they're fine. And it's just, it's become even more brutal, but that's what sells it. That's what sells the game. That's what I want to see,
I remember years ago, I was friendly with Wade Heisinger, and when he owned the the Miami Dolphins.
Right.
So I was sidelined for a game. He got me a sideline pass. And I remember they're playing Pittsburgh on a Monday night game. And Pittsburgh's wearing their black uniforms. And I remember I'm standing on the sideline, and a sweep is coming my way. And here come these guys, and it was like, oh my God! It was like Panzer tanks coming at me. I'm going, oh my God!
Right.
And it was like, get the hell out of here! Yeah. I mean, it was wow.
In particular, Justin Tuck. In particular, this guy is a tank. He's a human tank, and I've never seen anything like it. And I'm like, if this guy gets a quarterback in his grasp, how does anybody get away from him,
We're doing the Arliss show a couple of years ago, and we had that great, the guy who played the great linebacker from Baltimore who played Lincoln, Billy Ray Lewis, Daniel Ray Lewis, right. Daniel, that great actor who played Lincoln, that great linebacker. So. And he was on the show, and the gag was that Arliss was representing Ray Lewis.
Yeah.
And Ray Lewis had just bought this $150,000 car, so he takes me out to the parking lot to see it. And there, Kirby, my sidekick, is backing up his car, and he smashes.
I remember this episode. Yeah.
And he smashes into the car and then pulls out.
By the way, Ray Lewis is good in that. By the way,
Ray Lewis was delightful, actually, which is not a word most of the time people relate to.
No, but I mean, he's a good actor.
I tell you, I liked working with him a lot.
Good actor.
He was after the. I was with him the night before the incident. Right.
I'll
tell you about that one too.
After that,
yeah. The night before the incident. So then Ray Lewis sees this in the show, and he runs after the guy. Runs after the car. So I'm sitting by the camera. I'm right by the camera, and Ray's coming this way towards me. Now he's in street clothes. He's total street clothes. Black shoes, leather shoes, and he starts running at you. And he goes, and I'm right here, and he just runs right by me, and it was like, and I just stood there, and I looked at the cameraman next to me. We both went like this, and we were saying this is without armor on.
Yeah,
it was like, oh my God.
We did a sketch. It's funny when a professional athlete lets you close to being in their world of physicality and just does enough just to scare you. Roy Jones, the great boxer, Roy Jones,
a great guy. Love Roy,
an unbelievable boxer. Did a sketch when I was on Mad TV. We talked him into doing a sketch for us on Mad TV. So he wouldn't do it in front of the audience. So we're shooting it single camera, and in between shots, there's time to kill. And I went up to him like an idiot. I was in the sketch with him. I said, "Come on, Roy, come on. What do you got? What do you got?" Like I did a stance like this. Come on, man. I go, and I wouldn't stop. So he goes like, just fooling around. He throws a left hook, and he stops an inch before my face. But Robert, it was an inch before my face in a millisecond. Like there wasn't time, didn't even go by. Like his fist was here, then it was here in a millisecond, and it was like, whoa, just letting you know what could happen.
Yeah. No.
And I want to talk about what happened with Ray Lewis the night before the incident.